Others will say you have no integrity and you're lying. I'm calling you on your integrity. How does that make you feel?
I'm learning from it. I don't get angry.
If we can't trust what you say and what you see, we can't have you in our uniform. 7 months on, how are you still employed by us?
I don't know.
Nobody expected this story to explode the way it did. One moment, people were grieving a tragedy that shook communities across the country, and the next, a political firestorm erupted that split the internet in half. When conservative commentator Candace Owens stepped into the conversation about the death of Sonya Massey, emotions didn't just rise, they boiled over. Because this wasn't just another news debate. This was about loss, fear, trust, and the deep divide in how people see justice in America. Some viewers said Candace was speaking hard truths that others were too afraid to say. Others felt her reaction crossed a line, turning a painful moment into a political argument. And what really shocked people wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Calm, direct, almost detached, while families were still mourning.
It was an incident that happened earlier that day, and I talked to 2 officers or whatever, and I believe that it's the same officer that shot my mother.
But here's the twist. This reaction didn't come out of nowhere. It's rooted in years of controversy, clashing perspectives, and a public figure who has built her entire career on challenging the mainstream narrative, no matter the cost. To understand why her words hit so hard, you have to understand where Candace came from and why she's never been afraid to stand alone. Candace Owens' story isn't the typical political rise. She didn't grow up in Washington circles or media studios. She grew up in Connecticut, raised by her grandparents after a difficult childhood that included racism, bullying, and legal battles during her school years. Those experiences shaped her early views on identity and justice, but they didn't lead her where people might expect.
First night I don't go to my mother's house, this happens. How? Why? And I wonder if I was there, if he would have did anything to me. I don't know.
In fact, Candace's political identity didn't really take shape until adulthood. At first, she wasn't known as a conservative voice at all. She worked in marketing, branding, and media strategy. She tried launching projects online, including one aimed at tracking internet harassment, but that project backfired and drew backlash from both sides of the political spectrum. That moment changed everything.
Oh, that's not your black car in the driveway? Oh, well, we checked your yard, we walked around the whole block, we didn't see anybody. We don't.
Instead of stepping back, Candace leaned in. She started questioning the narratives she once accepted. She started posting videos challenging liberal viewpoints, especially on race, policing, and personal responsibility. Her blunt tone caught attention fast. Within months, she had millions watching her content, debating her points, and arguing over her takes.
We don't need a fire while we're here.
Right.
Huh? Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgive you in the name of Jesus.
Soon, she became one of the most recognizable conservative commentators in the country. Speaking tours, viral interviews, television appearances, her platform grew bigger than anyone predicted. Supporters saw her as fearless, critics saw her as provocative, but nobody could ignore her.
I swear to God, I'll shoot your fucking face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the pot! Drop the pot! Drop the pot! Drop the pot!
Candace built her brand on one core idea. She refuses to follow emotional consensus. She believes public conversations should focus on facts, individual accountability, and questioning narratives shaped by media outrage. That approach made her a hero to some audiences and deeply controversial to others. So when news broke about Sonya Massey's death and the footage spread across social media, many people assumed Candace would stay quiet. After all, the story was raw, painful, and still unfolding. But that's not how Candace operates. Instead, she stepped right into the storm. At first, the nation reacted with shock and grief. Reports described a mental health crisis, a police response, and a life lost inside a home that was supposed to be safe. Clips circulated online, fueling outrage, sorrow, and questions about how things escalated so quickly. Community leaders demanded answers, activists called for investigations, families asked for accountability. Then Candace Owens posted her reaction, and just like that, the tone of the conversation changed.
Bring emails now. We got a head to the female. Head to the female. 1078.
I was on. I'm gonna go get my kit.
No, she's done. You can go get it, but that's head.
She didn't begin with sympathy. She began with skepticism. Candace questioned whether the full story was being told. She argued that viral narratives often rush to judgment before evidence is examined. She warned viewers not to assume motive or intent simply because a tragedy looks clear on the surface. To some listeners, it sounded like a call for caution. To others, it sounded like she was dismissing the pain surrounding Sonya's death.
Yeah, I'm not taking boiling water in the head. And look, it came right to our feet, too. God damn it.
But Candace didn't stop there. She went further, suggesting that media coverage tends to amplify stories that fit certain racial or political narratives while ignoring others. She said Americans should focus on broader issues like mental health resources, police training, and community safety, not just emotional reactions. That's when the backlash truly began. Comment sections exploded. Critics accused her of minimizing a tragedy. Others said she was shifting blame away from law enforcement. Some former supporters even admitted they felt uncomfortable with her tone this time. But Candace doubled down. In follow-up posts and appearances, she insisted she was defending truth, not attacking a victim. She argued that emotional reactions can cloud judgment and lead to policies based on outrage instead of solutions. She repeated that tragedies deserve investigation, not instant conclusions. And that's where the divide became painfully clear. Because for many viewers, this wasn't about politics or media bias, it was about empathy. People wanted to see compassion first, analysis second. They wanted acknowledgement of loss before debate. But Candace's brand has never been built on emotional comfort. It's built on confrontation. And once again, she found herself at the center of a national argument. What nobody expected was how personal the reaction became. Families connected to similar cases spoke out, saying comments like Candace's made them feel invisible. Activists said her words reinforced distrust between communities and public figures. Some commentators even accused her of chasing controversy for attention. But Candace responded by saying the opposite was true. She claimed that refusing to question narratives is what truly harms public understanding. She said real change requires uncomfortable conversations, even when people don't want to hear them. Her supporters rallied around her, praising her for refusing to follow the crowd. They argued that emotional reactions shouldn't replace facts, and that Candace was right to encourage critical thinking. Meanwhile, critics insisted the timing of her remarks felt cold. They said that while analysis matters, humanity matters more. And that's when the story shifted from one tragic case into a much bigger conversation about how America processes grief, justice, and truth. Because at its core, this wasn't just about Candace Owens or Sonya Massey. It was about the growing gap between how people interpret the same event. One side saw Candace as rational in a moment of chaos. The other saw her as disconnected from the emotional reality families were living through. And that divide didn't just stay online. It spilled into interviews, panels, podcasts, and political speeches. Suddenly, Candace's reaction wasn't just commentary. It became a symbol of the country's larger conflict over race, policing, media influence, and empathy itself.
For Sonya Massey's loved ones, the noise around the debate only deepened their pain. Every headline, every argument, every viral post reminded them that their loss had become a public battleground. Grief turned into discussion, mourning turned into talking points, and that's a heavy weight for any family to carry. For Candace, the reaction reinforced something she's faced her entire career, being praised as fearless by supporters while being condemned as insensitive by critics. It's a lonely position to stand in, especially when the stakes involve real lives, real deaths, and real emotions. But whether people agree with her or not, Candace Owens has never tried to be universally liked. She's tried to be heard. And in this case, she definitely was. What this situation revealed is something deeper than a single reaction video or social media post. It showed how differently people define justice. Some believe justice starts with empathy and acknowledgement of harm. Others believe justice starts with evidence and questioning assumptions. Candace Owens stands firmly in the second camp. Her critics stand firmly in the first. And somewhere in between are millions of viewers trying to understand what the truth really is and how to talk about tragedy without losing compassion. Because the truth is, both grief and facts matter, both accountability and fairness matter, and the challenge of our time may be figuring out how to hold those truths at once without tearing each other apart in the process. As the story continues to unfold, one thing is certain: the conversation isn't over. Candace Owens will keep speaking, her critics will keep responding, families will keep demanding answers, and audiences will keep watching, trying to make sense of it all. Because stories like this don't end with one statement or one reaction, they ripple outward, forcing society to confront uncomfortable questions about justice, media, and humanity. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Not whether Candace Owens was right or wrong, but whether we as a society know how to talk about tragedy in a way that honors both truth and compassion. Because until we learn that balance, these stories will keep repeating, and every time they do, the stakes will feel just as heavy as they do now.